Good evening, hi. I'm here this evening and I'm actually going to tell you about some of my sailing adventures and how that has not only... Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Not only made a difference to my life, but actually somehow it's actually moulded my whole life. And this picture I found in the attic of my mum's house a little while ago, a few days after Phil asked me to talk here actually. And I scanned it, it's pretty poor quality. I think he might have even improved it for me. Thank you, Phil. This is a sail training ship. It's the Sir Winston Churchill, and the Sail Training Association was taking before. These ships have since been surpassed by larger ships, but the Youth Sailing Trust are still taking people to sea today. But 16 to 20-year-olds going to sea on these ships. And this, for me, was the beginning of my adventurous life. How that came about in my life was that I was a Boy Scout, and this young guy, he wasn't much older than me at the time, and I was 15, he was 16 or 17, very enthusiastic young man, and he came down to our scout group to talk about his adventure on the tall ship. And what he said, he stood there, he wasn't a very good talker, probably a bit like me really, and he said, well, you know, it was amazing. It really was amazing. There was me and there was these 30 other kids, and we got to steer the ship and we got to climb the rigging, and they got us up all hours of the day and night, and it was exhausting and it really stank down below, and he felt sick most of the time and tired, and they gave him some overalls, some waterproof jacket, and he said his absolutely stunk of the person from the week before's vomit. And I sat there watching that, listening to all that, thinking, good God, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Sign me up, I'm off. So what happened next is I got myself on board the Winston Churchill. If you don't know which one's me, I used to wear a wig when I was younger. I'm the one in the blue. The lad who had come to our scout group was absolutely right. My jacket stunk so much of the person's vomit. Week-old vomit is not something you want to smell, and I'm there wearing the blue. Now, when I was here on board the Winston Churchill, I had no idea in my life, never at all, that I could work at sea. Not did I know that I could work at sea or dream of working at sea, and even though I was actually very lucky to return on board this boat, they invited some of the young people, particularly for my enthusiasm, not my skill, but to come back and help the other young people through some of the routines on board. And I did actually manage to go back several times. But even though I had gone back several times on board the ship, I had no idea, and no one around me in my life had any idea, that a career at sea was possible. And it's funny, isn't it? Because, you know, ships and boats and ferries, and we all know that. I didn't even consider that people work on those boats and that I could do one of those jobs. So here I am, 16. So what I'm going to do very, very quickly, and we'll spend literally a minute or two. There's two standard routes into shipping, commercial shipping, these days. You can do your STCW, Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping, and that's a week-long course. Cost you £1,000. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Not if you're thinking about going to university, perhaps. 5-day course, that includes a bit of sea survival, a bit of first aid, personal safety and social responsibility, a little bit of firefighting and fire prevention, fishing security. Get that ticket, STCW, any boat over 24 metres, 500 tonnes, you need that ticket. Doesn't matter if you're working in the cafe on the ferry or on a cruise ship, any ship, you need that ticket. You rock up with that ticket in the south of France, walk along the dock saying, hey, have you got a job? You might just get one. Option 2, Officer of the Watch training. It's free. It's funded by the big shipping companies. It's incentivized they are to train young people. It's a 3-year course. It's a massive undertaking. It's a combination of classes and courses ashore, and it's alternated by some time at sea on different ships. So let's say P&O, they've got ferries and container ships, and what they do, they send you to sea for a few months, you learn what you're doing, then you come back and go to school. If you pass, and of course you have to pass these things, they're not just given out, the shipping world will be your oyster. Absolutely. And you can pretty much come out of there, you'd have an office with a watch ticket, you could stand on the bridge of a container ship, a ferry, a cruise ship, a yacht, and it would have been free. Brilliant. However, I had absolutely no idea that that was available to me, and neither did anyone around me at the time. And I was just enjoying my life. The next thing that came along for me, and the big adventure in my life that made a difference to me, I'm not going to talk to you about the jungle. Sarah's done a very good job about that. I went to the jungle, again, still wearing the wig on the left there. And I went to Brazil, and the reason I'm telling you about me going to Brazil and going to the jungle was because I absolutely loved it. Sorry, Sarah, but I loved my experience in the jungle. And I went to Brazil, and as a young man, I really, thoroughly enjoyed not just the jungle, but Brazil. The colour, the vibrance, the people, the music. And I was very young at the time, well, not very young for some of these people here, but I was 19 at the time when I went to Brazil. And it got into my skin. And the reason this is a very important trip for me was because what happened is after that trip, because I wanted to go back to Brazil so much, my adventures funneled and were much more, they had a meaning. I'm going to go back to Brazil. And my route to Brazil, I planned, was I was going to teach English and go back to Brazil. So back from the jungle then, and I started studying to teach English as a foreign language. I did that, I was working away, and as you do, I met a young lady, Canadian lady, she was, and she said to me, hey Darren, why don't you come to Canada with me? And I said, no, you know what, I'm not going to come to Canada with you. My plan is to go to Brazil. Anyway, when I was in Canada, what happened was I had a very chance meeting with a man, and that man owned a schooner. And I knew a young man who had some experience on a schooner, and fortunately for me, because of that experience and that being inspired as a young man to go on the sailing schooners, I now easily got this job in Canada. So now I'm sailing away in Canada, end of the season comes around, and I go to see that girlfriend. Just so that you know, equestrian sports and sailing, they're not compatible as hobbies. And so I've now come to the end of that season, and she said, no, I'm not going to go to Brazil. I said, well, I am. And the guys at the boat, they think that if I drive or go to Florida, I might get a boat to Brazil. What a stellar idea. There's no internet at the time, no research, no planning, just some people I thought quite a lot of and thought it was a good idea too, and they told me in the pub. And so I decided to go to Florida, and I didn't really know where to go or who to speak to or what happened, but these things have a habit of perpetuating themselves, and we've heard it this evening and several times. It happen, and the more you talk to people. So I'm going to Florida, I get down there, and I just tell everyone, I want to go to Brazil. Can I get to Brazil? Do you know someone who's going to Brazil? Is there a boat going to Brazil? Everyone was sick of me. 2 weeks later, I get back to the digs that I'm staying at, and there was a handwritten note. I don't know if any of you know what one of those is, but basically someone had got a pen and a piece of paper, and they'd written some stuff down on it. And that's a handwritten note. And this lady had gone to the effort to write a handwritten note, and she'd brought it to the house. Said on it, to the young man who wants to get to South America or Brazil, can they come to the marina office at Pier 66 tomorrow? That's me. She must be talking about me. So I went down, saw this lady, Yolanda. She said, well, if you can get down to the boat tomorrow, we're sailing to Chile. This is Yolanda's husband there. Again, still wearing that wig, fashionable. And obviously didn't eat very much either. And this is me. I left Florida, sailing. And what's brilliant for me about this is this now, after having worked at the schooner company and worked on this was now nearly a whole year, my first whole year of being a paid sailor. and I was heading for South America. Anyway, I get to South America, get down there, I'm pretty tired. Vern there, he's the captain. He was beardy there. He told me that I could work with him in Florida, and the guys in Canada said, yeah, you know what, you can come back, work on the schooner in Canada. So this kind of cycle of meeting people and carrying along through life, and the adventures were leading together and really working out for me. Until a size 10 Canadian immigration boot, right up the bottom. And they kicked me out of Canada because I wasn't being very sensible. I didn't have the correct visas, and that's something. And I took that very seriously. I wasn't completely booted out, but they recommended that I perhaps leave. So I left. And what that did was it did more than kick me up the bottom in Canada. It chopped this cycle, and it meant that I now came home to Britain and I started education and teaching myself the education of sailing. And I sailed on many, many fantastic ships and boats. I got my qualifications, and in 2004, I became captain of this tall ship. And for me, this was a whole cycle from being inspired by a young man, much the same as myself, at 16, to go on a sailing ship. Now here I am, and captain of a tall ship. And a kind of full circle, really, and keep all these adventures kind of coming together for me. And really, I was very proud to be captain of a tall ship and working with young people. Massively, massively rewarding. Some years on, I took a job as captain of this splendid ship. And I'm still there now. In fact, next week I'm off to Hawaii to join her. And we go around the world, doing all sorts of different things. But what happened last year, after 23 years and over 300,000 sea miles, more than 30 ships and boats, it's taken me, it must be more than 34 countries. That was a quick thing. But I've been to many of them more than once. I've done 8 Atlantic crossings, 2 complete circles of the Pacific Ocean, and 6 transits of the Panama Canal. Last year in May, I sailed back to Brazil. And that's my adventure. And I just want to share that with you.